Hello, welcome to Bogan Intel. Today we're honoured to have Robert Martin, an Australian human rights activist, co-host of Palestine Remembered, and a participant in the Freedom Flotilla's Handala mission in July. Robert joined 20 other activists from 12 countries on a daring journey to deliver humanitarian aid, baby formula, and medicine to Gaza, challenging Israel's blockade in international waters. But their mission was cut short when Israeli forces intercepted their vessel, detained them, and subjected them to harsh treatment in Givon Prison. In this special length episode, we'll explore Robert's journey from sabotage at Gallipoli port to the dramatic interception at sea, his detention alongside fellow activist Tanya Safi, and the psychological toll of being treated like criminals. We'll also hear his reflections on returning home to Sydney, his observations from multiple visits to Palestine, and his insights into the resilience of the Palestinian people and the ongoing conflict with Israel. Robert's story is one of defiance, solidarity, and an unyielding commitment to exposing the truths he's witnessed firsthand. Please stay with us for a riveting episode. Thank you. A very special welcome to Robert Martin today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, buddy. I appreciate it. I've heard lots of good things. A very good friend of mine, Michael Shake, thinks you're wonderful.
Well, Michael's a top bloke, and to have that endorsement's a good thing. So thank you. We've got a lot to talk about today. You're someone that's, well, if people don't know you already, an activist that's been working quite a long time to raise awareness about Palestine and the plight of Palestinians. Could you please give us a little bit more information about what you do?
So my best friend, Nasser Mashni, is Palestinian. He told me for about 15 years what Israel was doing to the Palestinians. He used to tell me that they're killing my people, they're stealing my land. I never believed him. So I used to go home, see the news, see current affair. I would hear our politicians all say the same thing, that Israel has the right to defend itself and that the Palestinians want to destroy Israel. And I bought that line. Come to 2014, on the news, Israel was killing Palestinians with jets from the sea, with tanks going through villages, to a people that have no military. They have a very, very small wing that have homemade rockets, you could pretty much call. And they are trying to fight what's called the occupation of Palestine because Israel is trying to steal it. And it didn't make sense. I saw all of these babies being killed from the air, and our countries, and we just allowing it to happen. So I started to read up a little bit. In the end, I decided, you know what, I'm going to go over there and have a look because I want to know the truth. And the only way to find the truth is to go out and go on your own. I didn't go with a group. I went completely on my own to see what was happening. I couldn't get into Gaza, but I could get through the occupied West Bank, and it blew my mind. It blew my mind, the blatant racism towards the Palestinians and how we could actually allow it to happen. I was embarrassed too that I'd actually allowed myself to believe this without actually doing some homework. I went back in 2017, same sort of thing. Got to see a lot more and was shocked again. Was shocked that I couldn't do more. And then the Freedom Flotilla approached me and said, "Do you want to come on a boat to Gaza?" And I said, yes. And so that's, I suppose, a long story condensed.
So your first-hand experiences have defined you. And before we continue, because we are going to focus on that journey that you took, but what takes someone out of their 9-to-5 day job? I don't know what you were doing before. You were heavily involved in activism, but yeah, sort of how did that work for you? You said you went over there by yourself to see what was happening, and what were you doing beforehand, and what kicked you off to that next level where you decided you'd sort of had enough of sitting around?
Well, the first bit of racism that I saw was when I started posting stuff. I would post exactly the same things as what my Palestinian friend would do, but people would believe me. And my stuff ended up going viral. I'm white, I'm non-religious. They actually shouldn't really be listening to me. They should be listening to the actual voices. And I started to realise that racism really is out there. I also figured out that I call it a subconscious racist, because I didn't realise I was racist. I just thought what I believed was the truth from the governments and from the media. And so I was lucky enough to be in a financial position, but I was also lucky enough that I owned my own business. So I couldn't have the other side. Emails didn't bother me, phone calls didn't bother me. All of these things that they did to try and have my businesses closed didn't overly bother me. I had the anti-terrorism unit come to my office, spent hours with me, best thing ever. Best thing that they could have done, because they said, Rob, when we get a certain amount of complaints or people worried about something, we're obligated to come and see you. We now know who you are. We know what you're trying to do. We know you're not a mad person. We know that you've got good intentions. We'll leave you alone from now on. And so that was a great thing. And then going over there and coming back, I knew that I needed to go again. But I knew that I have a white privilege, which I should use. I don't understand how someone can see an abuse on a massive level and then step away from it. You can't actually do that. It's just, it moves you and changes you too much.
There are many Australians, I think, grappling with this feeling right now. We often feel so far removed from many issues geographically in this, desert continent at the bottom of the earth. And I think sometimes we feel helpless. And in the past, I think Australians have had this feeling that the bipartisan political duopoly was something that we could somehow navigate or steer to define the values of the country. And we're seeing that disconnect so stark these days with the protests on the bridge, contrasting with the words of our mainstream parliamentarians that are still either dithering and making excuses for Israel or outright supporting them at this kind of point of their genocide, which is undeniable. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about, you joined this Handala mission, or you offered to join the Handala mission, which consisted of a group of people, 21 activists, was it, on the boat from a bunch of countries. So I'd just like you to potentially just make a setting here and speak to these people. Who were you involved with, and who were these people?
Well, first of all, the Freedom Flotilla coalition was established in about 2007. So it's been around a long time. And you'll never guess who was the one that came up with the idea. Our mate Michael Shake. He was the one that actually came up with the idea of sailing ships to Gaza. And that was a long time ago. A lot of people believe that it's a new initiative because Greta was on the last one. That was the 35th. Mine was the 36th or 37th. They've been trying to send them every year, every few years. I was supposed to go in 2017, but I couldn't. I was supposed to be on the Conscience. It was bombed last year. It was bombed just out of Malta waters by Israel. I was supposed to be on that one. Then I was supposed to be on the Madeleine, but I was unwell. And then I came good for the Handala, and I said, I will be there. Nothing will stop me at all from getting onto that boat. I personally believe it's an initiative that can make a world of difference to Palestine and the perception of what's going on in Gaza. The whole idea of it is to break the illegal siege, because Israel has an illegal siege on Gaza, and it's not new. So many people believe that it's from October 7. It's got nothing to do with October 7. It happened many, many years ago. At the same time, so as soon as the siege was created, the Freedom Flotilla was created. It shows the desperation of Israel to stop a small boat with 21 people on it delivering aid, medication, and teddy bears. That's what we wanted to do. We wanted to get to Gaza. There were 5 Americans or 6 Americans on board. There were a few French on board. We try to have a spread of nationalities because it actually makes it safer, because you have more governments watching. In the end, having 5 or 6 American people on board didn't overly help, because I believe that their consulate didn't come and visit them. And that's Trump saying, let them go. leave them to their own devices. Whereas Australia, I was really looked after. I was very, very lucky, very lucky. But the trip also, it highlights the route to get aid in through the Mediterranean Sea. The Americans and Israel want you to believe that it's hard to get aid in. And so we get these pictures of the aid being dropped in, killing people. Whereas through the Mediterranean corridor, you could get dozens and dozens of ships. You could get magnificent, huge boats converted into hospitals to get to Gaza, start helping the children, take them to other countries. It would change the face of what's going on in Gaza. And that's why, for me, it was very, very important to me. And I also knew that it was important because it's the only way I could potentially get back into Palestine because I'm banned. And I thought I'll get on a boat and I'll go to Gaza.
And as you say, this blockade on Gaza has been decades long, and they make it feel like we can't access this place like it's on another planet. But the Mediterranean Sea is this kind of is the original inland sea with soft waters that you can sail to quite easily just across the way. And there are so many people enjoying yacht trips just kilometers off the coast. It's an incredible contrast. So, like, I want to speak to you to continue a little bit about where you left. So you assembled with this group of people. Whereabouts was this? And what was the atmosphere and the feeling going through this group of people about to board a boat towards Gaza?
The beautiful thing about being a part of the Palestinian movement is that when you go out for normal drinks, with friends and you meet other people, you have a very superficial conversation. We live very superficial. We don't get too deep. We don't get involved with those sorts of feelings. When you're part of a movement like going to Gaza, where potentially you could die, but you also potentially can help save lives, we get very close very quickly, which is a beautiful thing. And so if some people are a little nervous, we're always checking in on each other. We're always doing those sorts of things. We're always reminding ourselves of why we're doing it. The amount of messages we get from Gaza, from the children, saying that they're waiting to see, they can't wait. Thank you very much for helping. Thanks for shining a light. All of those things keep you motivated as well. And so it's a great thing. As we started to get closer, we started to do non-violent training. And so we knew that if we didn't get to Gaza, they would board the ship. And they try and intimidate you, and they try and do all sorts of things. So we practice that. As we get closer, you see more drones in the sky, and the drones. You see the drones the whole time. They're just different styles of drones. A lot of the drones are there to watch for refugees, not to do anything, not to help them, but to see them. And that's sort of it, which is an awful sight. And then when we got closer, you see the serious drones from Israel that's going through the schematics of your ship, trying to figure out, how many are on board, all of those sorts of things to feed the information back to the soldiers. And then things start to get serious. We're all very calm. We were very calm, which was cool. I think the knowing why we were there made that difference. But it's a weird feeling too, because if you're out to sea for 8 days, there's a lot of water. There's not much else to see. You realise how big the place is. But like you said before, the water was very calm, very, very calm, and our boat's very small. And so the corridor for aid is so easy for them to bring it. So we went through some big emotional times. There was a few Palestinians on board. They got very emotional because we're getting so close to Gaza. They'd never got so close. Being so close to Palestine was a beautiful thing. And then you have it ripped out of from you. And the fact that the Israelis have no jurisdiction here at all. None. It's international waters and then Palestinian waters. They have no jurisdictions. Even if they have put a siege closer to Gaza, where they took us was much further out than they should have. But yet the rest of the world allows them to do that. The rest of the world doesn't hold them to account. The rest of the world doesn't even say anything, which is really annoying. And so when you get boarded by these, this particular unit, They're the something 13 unit. They're the ones that massacred 10 people on the Mavi Marmara in 2010. It's the same unit. It's the same unit that massacred people in the Al Shifa hospital. It's the same unit. They are the specialist unit that come in and do these special operations. They're not overly big. They're thin. They're built for speed, but one of them had 4 guns on them, three revolvers or pistols or whatever you want to call them, and a M16. When they're on the boat, there was a live feed. I don't know if you saw it, but a lot of people saw it. We saw that would have been close to 30 people on this boat, 30 soldiers, 30 of them, all fully armed. There's 21 of us.
Just
looking down at us.
The cost, Robert, of mapping, following, surveilling, to hit up this rudimentary boat full of baby formula and teddy bears. Just insane. The obsession with it too, by the looks of it, right?
Yeah, it's one thing you do think of too, because we also believe that we counted like 10 to 14 boats, different styles of boats. There's a lot of smaller ones where they come right up and they jump on. But when we got towards Ashdod and the sun was coming up, you could see these other guns that, with the guns on them, the same ones that they used to shoot the Palestinians in the sea. And you're right. And then they have also the naval guard. They come as well. It would have been insane. The amount to stop us from getting food into Gaza, it just shows how desperate they are not to feed the Palestinians. And I think they also don't want, they try to scare people to say that if people went to Gaza, they're going to get executed and killed. And they don't want to show, if we get in there, that we're going to be okay, because we know we're going to be okay. And it's another little facade that they have.
They're trying to create it like it's, I watched this film a couple of months ago called Escape from New York. I don't know if you ever know that film with Kurt Russell. Yeah. John Carpenter. Great film.
Yeah.
And the conditions that they live in this futuristic walled off city in a section of New York is better than what's going on in Gaza by orders of magnitude. This is a dystopian science fiction, and the way the media and our governments have kind of promoted it like this fenced off, compartmentalized part of this planet that we can't even think about accessing or imagine being a part of is part of the bullshit, right? And yeah, like we're speaking about the costs, and before we're going to get back into to those details soon, but I would like to, also ask, I mean, there seems an obsession, as you said, the cost was so high. I'm wondering if it is a damage control thing, if it is an obsession thing, but if there's also an element of PR. I want to ask you, are these freedom flotillas and their apprehensions being followed or supported by the Israeli public? Is the Israeli media kind of all over this too and showing all this footage of, these highly armed guards or these overpopulated boats coming at this tiny little thing? And is that part of the narrative as well?
They like to show us as supporters of terrorism. And quite often they'll say that we support Hamas. That's their typical thing. But people just think we're crazy wanting to help the Palestinians in their media. There was an older lady on the boat, Victor's their cook. Everyone loved a picture and a video they took of her. She was the cook. She had a little bit of chewing gum in her up here. They found it in the prison, and they put her in maximum security, in isolation. But at the same time, they issued a article in the Israeli newspaper saying that she was trafficking hashish on the Handala.
I read the hashish thing. It's incredible.
So to give you an idea of what they report, we don't often see those little, and it's not just fringe. Most of the stuff's not fringe newspapers. It's all the same thing, and so we don't know. On the previous boat, and I don't think it's really been spoken a lot, on the Madeleine, the Israelis got a couple of guns of their own guns and planted them at the front of the boat and took pictures. For whatever reason. I mean, they're obviously Israeli guns, so you'd be stupid to try and utilize it. But I think they did it as a look what we can do. We could try and set you up. It's just these little things that they like to do, and it does work on some people. but it's, they just, the psychological warfare, it's lots of little things, death by cut, the paper cut. And, but I think also people aren't buying it anymore. People aren't buying it. It's just so over the top that you don't believe it anymore. And because it is crazy, I'm still waiting for, I believe, my bag is going to come out, because certain bags they didn't give back. I believe they're going to have a picture of something in it saying, look what I brought over. I have a feeling that's still coming. They took all of our little bags, our bum bags, and that's, makes it, I mean, who knows? Or do they just do it so I think about it? We just don't know. So,
Rob, you're probably one of the best people to make a comparison about the discombobulated, chaotic state of this apartheid police force that you've encountered over multiple occasions. It feels like there's a bit of a fear that's motivating some of these actions. They're so over the top. They're so overt. Are you feeling a skittishness in the Israeli Defense Force that you haven't seen in previous encounters regarding trying to contain this genocide?
they're scared. They're getting desperate. But then again, also these particular units that I've come across now are completely different than the previous units. There's a completely different level of police, and I reckon that you've got your normal soldiers that just wander around the occupied West Bank. They wear like a browny sort of colour. They're really school kids. They look like school kids. They have the job of just sort of looking the part. Occasionally they get given gas canisters, especially outside the schools or the refugee camps, and they shoot them between 1 and 3, which is when they finish school. I witnessed that on numerous occasions, spoke to the soldiers after that, and they were so timid. Had nothing at all. You go then to a demolition unit, they wear grey. They, if they're demolishing a small house, they've probably got between 50 and 100 soldiers come, like a massive unit. And it's heartbreaking, because you see so many soldiers prepared to take part in demolishing a family's home. And again, they do this between 1 and 3. When the school kids come home from school, the kids see it. And so it's in their brain to say, we have to do what Israel says. That's the hope that will happen. Some of those guys can be quite intimidating. There was one particular one that they're not huge, but they're a little bit bigger. There was one particular one, and he had grenades all the way down his things, and they use them. Again, just waiting for the right time. The border police aren't overly worrisome, but there is a small unit that gets on the bus and they wear chino pants, a tight t-shirt, and have a Uzi and a revolver, so they can look kind of threatening. And their job is to ruffle the feathers of the Palestinians on the bus going home, not me. So they took everyone off the bus, went through all of their stuff, but me as a foreigner coming into their country was like, you're okay, you just stay there. And to me, that was another time going, hang on.
The tram conductors with Uzis are just beating down on people. Incredible.
Yeah. And it is, and that's why when I would love for a mainstream media channel to go over, just walk through the streets. Don't put any dialogue in, no audio. You don't want to, have any bias whatsoever, but just walk. And you will go, oh my God, are you serious? How is this allowed to happen? But you've got these school kids, they sort of just playing around, couldn't care less about them. The Palestinians are pretty staunch, it makes it tough. The worst ones that when we got off the boat into immigration, the immigration police are different. They're all jacked up, aggressive, ready to make your life hell. They are the different style, much more aggressive. They do not take shit at all.
Incredible that the most like hardcore of them all in this ethno state are the ones working at immigration, right? They're probably more hardcore than the Mossad guys, the
Yeah,
immigration police.
it's a crazy place. It is a crazy place. The Mossad ones, they don't smile at all. Like we've got a picture of the one delivering when we had the water delivered that was sulfuric acid. He was there filming, and he just looked dead set. If you were going to put a picture of what a Mossad agent looked like, he was it. He was absolutely it. But yeah, there's different levels over there. All very weak, all very inhumane, all very propagandized, all not nice people at all.
Okay, Robert. So back to the journey. You were in Syracuse, which is on the island of Sicily, there where you departed from Italy. Can you explain a little bit about that first leg of the trip from Syracuse to Gallipoli in Turkey?
It was a very short trip.
Yep.
It was like 11 hours or something. So that was it was good for people to get sort of a bit used to the boat. Some people had already been on the boat, bringing it to Gallipoli. And so that was an easy journey. Good to just get used to it. And then from there, the people in Gallipoli were fantastic. They wanted to welcome us. They wanted to do some parties, and they did some speeches. They brought some food, and so they were fantastic. And so we were there for a few days before we left. I think maybe 3 or 4.
So you had a bit of momentum at this point. You've made your first leg of the trip. You've got a bit of wind in your sails, pardon the pun,
Yes.
and then you go to for the next leg, and you discover that there is a sabotage operation that's been carried out on your vessel. Right? Can you explain a little bit about that?
No, I've heard about sabotage in the past, and I always just go, yeah, whatever. Yeah, that's the way my brain is. People want to talk about sabotage. So the morning we were supposed to leave, someone noticed a rope, brand new rope, it was brand new, wrapped around the propeller. So what can happen if you don't notice it? You can go out to sea a fair way, and then boom, it can fall apart. The rope didn't sink. It was a floatable one, and it was made for fancier boats, and it was new, because you do have propeller issues. You do have ropes that do go into propellers, but this type of rope isn't that type of rope. So, and I thought, okay, whatever. The same morning when we're leaving, we have a guy that was very impatient, aggressive, wanting to get out, get the water onto the boat, because it's a huge thing. It's for drinking water, it's for cooking water and washing. Not that we wash a lot. And as it was getting moved, some splashed out onto Tan, my Australian comrade, and it burnt her leg. And she's gone, what the? And so they thought, we better test this, and they've taken the bit out, and it burnt one of the crew as well. It was sulfuric acid. Now, we've got a photo of the guy. He's there, being quite aggressive, holding his phone like this, saying, come on. And we've figured out that it was sulfuric acid. If that had got into the pipes, it would have ruined the boat. If we had drunk it, it would kill you. If you tried to shower in it, you're likely to go blind, or you're going to be burnt. That's a really serious offence. That is really serious.
Was this investigated?
Have,
was this investigated by Turkish authorities?
It's in the process of doing that, because over the years they've sent divers underneath to unscrew bits and pieces. So it has happened many times to the Freedom Flotilla Coalition. But that, to me, that is serious. That is absolutely serious to do that. If you took a skull out of that, you're in a world of trouble. And again, it just shows the desperation to try and stop the flotilla from going far. The world exposure as well, they've obviously taken a calculated guess or a calculated risk to say what we need to do is we can injure them a little bit, maybe they'll stop, rather than fight the PR of the boat coming and not letting it in. So, because, as I said before, they bombed the Conscience, which was like 10 weeks ago from today. They actually bombed it.
Well, that was
in
a drone. That was
international waters.
a drone attack, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Two bombs right at the front. Precision, absolute precision to do it. But to do it in Malta waters, basically.
That really showed up the EU as well, that event, because that was there was an attack on European citizens in a European waters. It's just, kind of insane to think about.
It's crazy. It is. It's crazy. And so when you're on the flotilla and you keep thinking of all these things, you know that there's nothing off the table. Nothing's off the table. So
the boat was repaired, I imagine. Did this cause a delay to your next leg of the journey there?
We were lucky that we have such a good ground crew, and when you have a ground crew there, they can make things happen. We were lucky enough. I'm pretty sure it was a Sunday we left. We were lucky enough to get water from someone else who would organise the owner to go and open it for us, so we didn't have any delays, because we don't want delays. Delays then have a knock-on effect as well, and it's not a good thing. We want to try and keep things. We also want to do it because it shows that those trying to stop the boat, not only will you not stop us, you actually won't even slow us down, and I think that was very, very important as well.
It seemed like potentially the ground crew and their haste helped to keep everyone, the crew, a little bit together there. I couldn't imagine how it would have ripped through morale a little bit. You'd been steeling yourself for a long time, knowing about the dangers of the trip ahead, and then you come into this encounter. So as you set sail, what was the mood on board?
The mood was pretty good because we were finally out. I myself have been, supposed to go a year ago. And so every time, I was always watching it from afar. So the absolute relief that we're actually in the sea going out. And then once we got out of their waters and we started to go, fantastic again. And then when you could see no land, we're here. That's what I went for. I didn't go for anything else. I didn't go for the PR or the lunches or any of this. I went to get to Gaza. And so I was wrapped that we were ready to go, or that we had left.
Totally. And that leaving Çanakkale there and pulling out through the Dardanelles and then out into the open waters. What's the next step there? Can you explain how long that journey was and how that sort of built up towards reaching the point where you were intercepted?
Well, it's 1,000 nautical miles, which is a lot.
It is a lot,
especially on a boat that was made in 1965 or 6. And not made for the Mediterranean waters, but Scandinavian waters. So it took 8 days, 8 days and nights of not stopping. So just continually going. The novelty wears off reasonably quickly. There's not a lot of places to sleep. There's not a lot of air. When there is a slight breeze, you get the diesel air coming through everywhere. So you're thinking, do I want a breeze or I don't want a breeze? You have the first 10 things of diesel breath. You think this is nice, and then you feel dizzy. Some people got really seasick at the start, but didn't last very long. Once you're asleep, you sleep quite well because of the rocking, so that's quite nice. But we all had chores to do as well. We all checked in. We all had a meeting. We all, then started to do our training and run through things that might happen that we hadn't thought of. It goes quite quickly. The time went quite quickly out at sea, which was surprising to me, possibly because I slept more than I normally do. But it was fun. It was fun.
So the mood in that on that boat was one of positivity by the sounds of it.
Definitely positivity, yeah. And when I say fun, when you've been gearing up to do this for a couple of years and you're actually doing it and you're thinking you're going to achieve it, it gives you that positive sense. We did have some people become negative, because they hadn't been home for so long, or they weren't used to being away. Uh, I've been an activist for a while. I've seen the cold hard realities of what Israel's like. A lot of people haven't experienced it all, and so you get closer, they start to worry. But we did stick together. And Hawaida, who is one of the creators as well, she was very. We had a comedian on board, Jacob Berger. He's a Jew. He's a proud Jew. He's an anti-Zionist. He's massive supporter of Palestine. Has been for a long time. He's lost his family because of it all. But his humour is, in fact, you know what? It's a lot of good Aussie humour too. A bit of rude humour here and there, and so he was funny to have on board. He also helped because he had TikTok lives. When we did one TikTok live, he got 6 million views in 1 hour.
Yeah, right.
6 million likes in 1 hour, which is huge. And the reason I say that is the day before we thought we were going to get hijacked or kidnapped is we wanted to get our media out there big time. And so we sort of tried to crescendo it up, which I think seemed to work. Because I know that the Israelis watch it, and I know that they are picking when they should get us, how they should get us. They're conscious of people watching, and so those sorts of things really, really helped. But we also had a young doctor on board. She was 22, fantastic girl, and she would keep going around and checking up on everybody to make sure they're all okay. And so we're very lucky with the group that we had. We all fitted very, very well together, which isn't an easy thing.
You had 8 days at sea, and all you had was each other, and a few jokes and some sleeping. But you also had a lot of time to think about things, I suppose. And you would have had individuals on this boat that, as you said, have had actual personal family connections to Gaza and potential family within Gaza. Uh, how were those hours and days of anticipation, knowing that there was going to be a point that you were going to encounter the Israeli Defense Force at some point, occupation force on the high seas?
I think I was probably, because a few people were surprised. I said, I can't wait for them to come. Come now, just come. I mean, my preference was to go to Gaza, but then again, it was either that and then I was going to get arrested. One of the two. One of the two things in my mind was going to happen. And so I was happy for both, either. I was happy to be arrested. I was not afraid of being arrested. I was not afraid of them in any way, shape, or form. And so I was okay. And some of the younger ones were a little bit afraid. And I told them that if anyone really on the boat was going to have issues with the Israelis, it's going to be me, because they know who I am. I've been kicked out of their country. I have been doing this a long time, and they would love to get their hands on me. So I was going to be one of them. Chris Smalls would be another one, because he's an African American. He was the only black man on board. He'd likely face it as well. And then we had 2 Israeli Palestinians, which you don't know how they're going to get treated, whether or not they're just going to get sent home or whether or not they're going to try and get convicted of criminal charges.
So they were
And so
Israeli. They were Israeli passport holders.
Yeah, so 48. So the Palestinians, in Israel still, and so and it's Israel hates them. Israel can't stand those ones because they're really using their privilege to speak out about what's going on. And part of the reason that we normally have 10 or 12 different passport holders, different passports from different countries, because it's harder for Israel, supposedly it's harder for Israel to take 10 people from 10 different countries and get away with it. If there's only 1 or 2 countries, they can do a deal and say, we're just going to hold them for a while, like they did maybe with the Americans. And so There was time for self-reflection. We did have the internet for most of that time. We had Starlink, so that it sort of it worked, and so we could prepare. We had to prepare videos for when they did come. We wanted to be ready, because the Israelis have the ability to cut all communications from for hours out before they get there. So I had all of those sorts of things to do. Those sort of pre-videos were harder to do because you didn't believe it yet. You wanted to get closer, and then you could start to feel it, and then you say, "I've been abducted, I've been kidnapped," and send those things out to our governments.
Now, you were with a fellow Australian, Tan, who
Yes.
you made one of those videos with,
Yes.
leading up to your apprehension there, which, according to the UN definition for the law of the sea, I think is a kidnapping, right? In
Yeah.
international waters.
It's also human trafficking.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, keeping that in mind, you made a final dash for Gazan waters aboard the Handala using a bit of a tactical, staggered approach. Could you explain how that came to pass, and how it actually happened, and then also, yeah, explain that first encounter if you can with the Israelis.
Well, the Israelis, they'll only come at night. That's when they come. That's when everything's easiest, because they've got all of they can see in the dark. They've got all of that stuff that makes it very, very easy for them. So we slowed up the day before because we wanted to sort of get through the waters, deeper waters in the day. So actually, it was the previous night we slowed right up, and then we could go a lot quicker. And I thought it was very clever. I know that it would have frustrated them as well. I could just hear them. You could just see them going, these people, what are they doing? And so they came at 10 o'clock that night. Normally, they'd like to come at 1 or 2 in the morning. But if they'd let us go until the next morning, we would have been in Palestinian waters. And they didn't want that to happen. And so it was a bizarre experience with the soldiers coming. We saw 2 flares go into the air. Normally, the world is so clear out there. It's just clouds. You see these 2 flares, and then all of a sudden it's foggy, like a haze, like a TV show where you've got ghosts, and then all of a sudden a boat appears. One boat right next to our boat. They're all grey, and so it looked like a ghost ship. And it was, I said, Jesus Christ, how the hell did that get there? And then they were very polite. They said, we know that you've had a difficult journey for 8 days. The journey has now come to an end. We're going to board your boat in 10 minutes. And they boarded it pretty much straight away. Very polite. Then they got on the boat with a film crew. So film crew, basically, the soldiers they knew what they needed to do for the camera as well. And so they did all of the things they needed. They were very polite, offered us food and water. And then they found our cameras, and you can see them ripping the cameras out really aggressively to try and get rid of them. And then they felt more relaxed to be more themselves. They were just hateful pricks, I would like to say.
Were there guns drawn, Robert?
Some were, yeah. Some had their M16s out. But when you see someone that's not overly big, but they've got 3 revolvers or pistols or whatever they call them these days, and an M16. One had 2 pistols and a shotgun. And you're just thinking, we're activists, yeah? There's 21 of us. The boat was checked before we left Gallipoli because that's how it works. We got no guns, but they had to do it to show. As a grand show. And we weren't sure whether or not they would use us to try and put off the next group, because that's going to happen. It's a matter of time. We thought maybe they would utilise us and beat us, make us fearful enough to tell the next flotillas don't go, because something's going to happen. And so I believe that when they got on, they had sprayed something, because everyone on the boat, except for Tan and myself, and then Tan went to sleep, fell asleep relatively quickly. in very bizarre positions. Now, you've got captains and crew that have worked on ships all their lives. They know that they can stay awake, they can do certain things, but they just went limp. I am on a medication that stops my brain from doing certain things, and I believe that stopped the gas as well. I'm on a fair bit of medication, from pain medication to other medications as well. And I believe that's what stopped me, because I went right to fully awake mode, which annoyed the soldiers because they were all over the boat, and there's an upper level where they were all up there as well. They were carrying around a bag that was jingling like it had knives and forks, spoons, or that's what it sounded like. And this is why I wonder whether or not they had put things in our luggage, our bags, because it just looked so sus. They walked on with this one bag and then walked off with it. It was a bizarre feeling, and it felt very sus. And me staying awake really annoyed them as well. So, because I just kept staring at them.
Were you in the holding of the boat, or were you on the main deck there, or
main deck? We're all on the main deck.
Yep.
All on the main deck.
And they were, looking down on you from their with
guns.
With guns, right? Yeah,
guns. Also with cameras. There was a lot of taking pictures, waiting for the perfect shot that will come out at some stage, I'm sure. Looking for someone smiling, someone holding something. They continually tried to hand us bread and sandwiches and water. And if you did take anything, they would get a picture, and they'd get a picture of you smiling, and then they'd use that later. Look how good we are. We saw that with Greta.
Yeah, that's right. We saw that with the Madeleine, and it was kind of like trying to paint everyone as these naughty school kids getting a prima and a sandwich, and the benevolent Israeli military is going to turn the other cheek and be the bigger person in the room, right?
Yeah. No one believes it.
So the interception did happen in international waters, right on the border of.
We're close. We're closer than anyone's got to Gaza for a while. Yep. But yeah, still outside that water, still outside the international waters where they have no jurisdiction at all.
So Israel takes this aggressive action, knowing the whole world's watching them. How do you feel that they are compelled to do this? How do you think they can get away with it? Because they can, right?
I mean, we laughed. I laughed quite a bit, and I said, well, you're just so heroic, aren't you? Taking a group of activists to jail for trying to feed the needy. I mean, what the fuck? I mean, seriously. And a lot of them wouldn't give you a lot. It's like a staunch look. They don't want to be too emotive. One of them said, I got back from Gaza last week, and that was a way of him just sort of putting it out there that, he's done whatever he needs to do over there, and I'm a pretty tough guy, and it's,
the badge of honor. Yep.
Yeah, you just want to throw. I mean, I wanted to just to sort of trip and bump one of them into the water. I would have thought that would have been fantastic, but it probably would have been the last thing I did. They wouldn't like that at all.
I did.
It definitely crossed my mind.
Well, Robert, I've seen you on quite a few of those clips, which I'd like to speak about a bit later over the years. And there's something you definitely convey that's uniquely, quintessentially Australian. And I think it's a cutting. It's the way it sort of gets through a little bit. I'm personally a big fan of it, and I'm sure many people are. Look, I just before we get onto your detention, you are captured on this. So you arrived in Ashdod. And after 11 hours on a boat, and you pulled up into Israel for the first time in
Palestine.
Into Palestine. For the first time in
occupied Palestine, we call it.
How many? When's the first? When was the last time you had been in occupied Palestine before you were in Ashdod there?
Twice. It's funny you actually asked this, because I got asked a number of times, how many times have you been to Israel before? I said none. I've been to Palestine twice, but I've never been to Israel. I do not recognize Israel. And that was my conversation with probably maybe 4 or 5 of them at different points before we got to prison. So, because they want you to say Israel. So yeah, I'd been in as I said before, 2014 and 2017. So this was my last time.
And Ashdod's quite close to Gaza as well. You were apprehended there and then taken to a notorious prison, right? Can you explain a little bit about how you got to Givon Prison?
It was interesting. So we got through all of the immigration stuff where they search your bags, the immigration, yeah, and then they pass you over to the prison spot. Now the prison spot is about 25 meters away, and you have to go through the entire process again, unpacking your bags, going through all your shit. These ones, before you go to prison, as I said, about 25 meters apart from each other. All right, so they could have just gone with the one strip search, but they want to do everything a few times. The second one, they went through more of your stuff, and it's a little bit funny because they'll video me watching them go through my stuff, and then they would take the video camera and then they'll start chucking shit out. I mean, it's hilarious. We got into a van. I was in the van. I was in the very front of the van where there was no windows, but it was behind the driver. And so the paint had been scraped slightly, so I could see through to the driver very faintly. There were 4 police cars giving us an escort. Flashing lights, changing lanes, taking us because we're such terrorists. We're massive terrorists here.
Were you still together at this point, Robert? You were still all together at this point?
So with the particular car, the vans they've got, I had 3 people with me at the front. One was one of the crew member, Antonio. The other one was Jacob, and then me. And then I couldn't see the different sections of the van. And so I didn't actually know. So I'm assuming that the vans were sectioned up. So maybe you could have 12 people, but you only knew 2 because they were next to you. I think that must have been the way it was. And so I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure whether or not the girls were with us. I weren't sure if anyone was with us at all, like, who was left. They drove crazy, absolutely crazy. And I'm sure they did it too because they didn't want us to be comfortable, and it worked very much so. We got taken in. We got all put into, all the girls were there. We were rapt to see the girls. They were put into one cell, and then all the boys in another cell. And they put us all in there. And then my name was called first. And so, they took me out. They handcuffed my hands and my legs. There would have been 15 security around me at this stage in a very small room. Like you didn't need 15 people. And they, took me to the doctor, she was 5 meters away in a different section, and started to talk and then stopped. And then a cameraman came in, and then another guy came in with a vest on, doctor, and he then knelt in front of me, like, he gave a shit, and then they videoed it. And I've gone, oh, fantastic, I'm an actor now. This is, wonderful. And they said, do you need any medication? I said, yes, I do, actually, I do. And then once the video camera went off, they didn't care about my medication anymore, and I was put in another room, which was it was pretty funny at this stage. I thought it was pretty amusing that they're just going to such high levels of these things, because they later on, she gave me a Panadol. I have bad arthritis, where I get injections, and I need a lot of tablets, a lot of medication. If I don't have a certain amount of medication, I feel the effects. I actually had the medication with me in Webster packs, so they were pre-done, doctor signatures, the whole lot. They were there. The doctor could see them, but they weren't going to give them to me. They gave me a Panadol, and then on the forms later on, it said that I had been given all my medication because of that one Panadol, which I thought was pretty funny. They then they took us into. I was again first to go into my cell. And the prison was horrible, just horrible. I went into the room. You could see it was horrific. The toilet had the toilet cleaning stuff was just all in the toilet, and the toilet water was all crappy. The walls, the sinks, everything has never been cleaned. But you can see that it's done purposely like that as well. It's purposely done. The mattresses were, like this. They had stains all over them. There were cockroaches. There were bed bugs. Then when you tried the water, it was either too hot, both taps. The cold was too hot one day, and then the next day they were both cold. I didn't drink any of the water at all. It had a metallic, sulfuric, dries your skin. It was awful. So that was that. I was in a cell with Frank, who's a 76-year-old. He's got 3 passports. He was banned, 10 years ago from Palestine. Whereas all the other guys were put in one cell. So Frank and I were in a cell that had 6 beds. The boys were in a cell that had 8 beds, and there were 7 of them. We still today don't know why potentially that happened. Having so many people in their room, the breathing was harder because the airflow. There was no ventilation, there was no airflow, no air conditioning. Sun coming in, it was very, very hot, very, very hot. And so I'm not sure why they did that. They came through numerous times and did strip searches on us, very aggressive ones. They had all of the gear on. The riot squad, they would come in and throw you in the showers, make sure that you took everything off. Again, just to try and intimidate you, I suppose. I didn't sleep for 3 or 4 days. They had threatened me enough for me to stay awake. They said that you never know if you're safe in prison. You don't know anyone here, and so I stayed awake because I didn't want to risk them coming in and beating the crap out of me. Even though I knew that if I saw them come in, I wouldn't be able to stop them. I still wouldn't be able to do anything, but I wasn't going to sleep. We didn't eat. I didn't have food or water. Tan didn't have food or water. Some of the others had just water. They did offer me food. Once it was a thing of bread, a bag of bread. He said, "Do you want some dinner?" A thing of yogurt. The other time, it looked actually like boiled eggs. It looked actually quite nice. They offered the girls tomato, and it was the size of a golf ball, and that was it. That's all they were offered. And so they play different games with different people. It's really a bit, I don't understand it. I don't understand why they have different rules or different psychological ideas for different people, but they must think it works. What it did do, and we need to make this really clear, it made it clear that we have some understanding of what the Palestinians are going through. We could hear some people screaming. We could hear some people being abused. We could hear guards yelling at people. We have the luxury of a passport. We're highly unlikely we're going to get lost. Whereas the Palestinians, they get put in there, and we know for a fact that the Palestinians don't always get told where their family members are. And so they're anywhere. And they can be moved around to all of these different spots. They can be beaten up. They can be sexually abused. And all of these things we know happen. We know for sure happen because we've seen footage and we've had people admit it. And so it gave us that small insight into what Palestinians go through. You could tell by our treatment that these soldiers would have no hesitation in mistreating the Palestinians every single time they saw a Palestinian, because they hated us so much because we supported Palestine. They thought we were criminals supporting Palestinians. Why don't you go to Syria? Why don't you do all of these other things? It's just because you hate Jews. Leave the Palestinians to us. All of those sorts of things. You could see the hatred. And the only way that hatred is ever going to be stopped is when governments step in and hold these people to account, because they're not going to stop themselves. They will not stop themselves. They're going to get worse.
The echo chambers in Netanyahu's Israel are insane, and it's constantly getting pushed to the right through the Ben Gvir, Smotrich, that sort of ethno-nationalist, messianical extreme end of Israeli society. And because Washington's kind of been throwing drugs at it like some addict, while it's running around on a spree, it's not able to come to terms with the reality of anything. And it feels like maybe just all it needs is for this thing to stop for a little while, and the whole thing's just going to collapse from Netanyahu through to the Israeli society. And I wonder if many of these people that were looking at you were grappling with some of those feelings, maybe an encroaching reality that's starting to appear within Israel. That's a stark contrast with what they know the outside world thinks. I mean, how much can you marinate in this bubble? I often wonder. And you mentioned those kids, and I've seen footage of you confronting some of those kids in the West Bank. And I'm wondering if this genocide in Gaza, the attacks from the Iranians that really sort of shook up Israeli society. I'm wondering if there is a new generation or a growing group of people in Israel that are now starting to question just how ridiculous this status quo is over there. But it doesn't seem like the people that had you in captivity are feeling that way.
No, they don't, and it's like they're affronted that we're there. Like completely affronted by it. It's like they're surprised as well that we're there. Who could care about the Palestinians? Why would you care about them? There's no getting through to these ones. It's sad. I mean, it's sad because you have to hate yourself that much to be able to hate someone else, and so your life can't be good. And then you become a prison guard and take your hate out in there. No, it's an awful thing.
There's like a cradle to grave indoctrination in Israel that's so it's so unique, and it's built from like multiple factors, but that alone could just be a straw man. But when they're all stacked together, it seems to like propel and drive extreme Israeli thought, regardless of what's going on around them. I mean, just even seeing that parliamentary security group approve the annexation of Gaza. It reflects a wider view within Israeli society that kind of I think is oft neglected in the West when we take in our calculations about how Israel can somehow become some pragmatic partner if it gets rid of Netanyahu or something like that, which is it's a lot deeper than that, right?
Absolutely.
So Tanya Safi was your fellow activist who was on this boat and experienced her own unique form of Israeli aggression, and she was attacked in her cell. Are you able to provide a little bit of information on what happened there?
Yeah, so they and it's important to know too. Some of the soldiers that were beating on her were men too. So there was no segregation of the having women guards. The men were harassing her as well. So they'd handcuff her and then pull her arms around and throw her against the wall and continually do that and stand over her. She has a nose ring that's been soldered on, so you can't just take it off. And they were trying to take it off, and she said, I can't. They've tried to pull it. They've come back in with bolt cutters, big ones, to try and cut it off. And Tan's going, oh, yeah, you're going to hurt my nose, you're going to do this, leave me alone. And then they come in with smaller ones. And so to do that, all of these sorts of things, I think they didn't want Tan to have something over them. And I think they took that as almost, a loss. But yeah, the complete shoving and pushing around continually. But it happened in front of inmates, other activists. One is a French politician. One worked at the UN and decided to leave the UN because she wouldn't be able to go on the Flotilla otherwise. So these are good people, but they didn't even hide the fact that they were going to mistreat Tan. They did it openly in front of these people, knowing that the chances are when she leaves, these people are going to lodge a complaint against her. But these again are the same people who threw a 70-year-old woman from Norway into solitary confinement from having tobacco. So there's no, it's bizarre. I would have thought maybe we, the men, would have been picked on a little bit more, but we weren't, other than for Chris. But also, it is surprising. The Australian passport is normally a very, very good protection for you, but they didn't seem to care. And when Tan left, we both went to Jordan. We went to hospital, and the hospital said that she's unfit to travel. That's what happened. And I've known Tan a while, visibly different from that experience in there. And, she's got a lot of work to do to hopefully get back to normal. She'll never get back to normal. She'll always be fighting for Palestine. But the fact that she's an Arab, the fact that she's a Lebanese Palestinian, that would not have been too good in the prison either. Something that they just don't like.
I couldn't even imagine what it was like to end up in this iteration of Israel's correctional system. I mean, seeing the gang raping of prisoners on television and one of the perpetrators becoming a talk show sensation, doing gigs and stuff like that. There's like a morbidity that and a sickness that's around some of this torture and abuse that's been developed on in Israeli prisons. And as you say, the horror and that you could not even imagine that the Palestinians go through behind closed doors. Some of them children that are crying for their parents. It's just an incredible thing to even consider.
Well, there's over 10,000 of them at the moment, Palestinians within the prison. There's over 3,000 that are under administrative detention. And administrative detention is they'll take someone and they haven't charged them with anything. And so 3,000 of those in those prisons. And some of those stay in there for years until they find a change. But they just want them off the street. They want to silence their voice. And then out of that 10,000, there are heaps that are kids. And I remember talking to Frank, my flatmate or cellmate. This would be devastating to a child, devastating to a child's psyche. Like they put you through enough in the prison. You go home, you're going to conform to whatever. It's going to ruin you. And they're the strongest kids in the world, probably. But that's still, and I know for a fact that they were gentle on us.
Sure.
100%.
So, some of the pictures, of the prisoner exchanges, throughout, there hasn't been one for a while now, but the condition some of these Palestinians were returned home in, some of them driven mad through years of torture,
Yeah.
with scarring throughout their body, like malnourished and completely, destroyed. The most moral army in the world, a beacon of light of democracy in the Middle East, is treating prisoners probably at the worst we've ever worst we've seen in the modern time. And it's quite incredible how they have this kind of spectrum of corrections where they've got something for people like you. They've got something for maybe Israeli political activists that get treated a certain way. Then they have something for Palestinians that live within Israel, and then Palestinians that live in the West Bank, Palestinians that live in Gaza. It's just like an all-encompassing method of control and domination. You ended up getting out. There was some legal process that you had to go through.
Yeah.
And then you were transferred from Givon Prison to Jordan via the, famous Allenbury Bridge, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you just explain a little bit how you were released, and what that experience was like, crossing over into Jordan from captivity, and what was on your mind?
So from Israel, we had court. So we went from court, which from our cell, everything's there. Everything's quite close. It was basically, I still don't know what the just trying to think of the word, what the decision was. whether I have a 90-year a 90 or 100 years worth of being banned, I didn't hear the results, and I was supposed to hear at the end of the day. But they got me out of my cell and said, right, come with me. And I said, where am I going? What's going on? And they said, just come. I wasn't sure. It's a little bit nerve-wracking when you don't actually know where you're going. And so they took me out into another room where they handcuffed my hands and my feet. And I said, mate, I ain't just going with you. What's going on? And they said, we're taking you to Jordan. And I said, well, I'm not going. I said, I'm not going to Jordan. My worry was they were going to take me to Jordan and throw me across the fence there and say, right, you're done with us. We don't need you. I have no money, no phones, no passport, no nothing. And I've heard that they've done this before. They have sent people to countries knowing that that country will have an issue with these people. And so I ended up speaking with the Australian consulate, and they said, we've made a deal that they will send you via Jordan. They will send you to Australia. They will have to give you all of the tickets. They'll have to give you everything. So it's not a matter of just dumping you there. And I said, okay. So I was sitting in a room, and then I heard Tan. And I heard Tan saying, I'm not going anywhere. Is Rob here? I don't know what's happening, because she'd been so mistreated. She might have assumed that they were taking her to another prison, might have assumed that they were taking her to another country. And then when we saw each other, we were a little bit more happy, because we knew we were going together. I told Tan that I'd assured her that they have to send us to Australia. And that's what happened. When Tan got into the van, I was shocked. I was shocked the way she looked. Because I've known Tan to be strong. She was brilliant on the boat. When the soldiers were coming, she calmed everybody. She was just so professional and caring for everybody. When the girls went into the prison, you could see she was looking after them. She was very, very good. And then when she got into this van, she was broken. And I was ropeable. I just was ropeable. From there, they took us to the bridge. They came out, and again, we didn't have a whole lot of confidence because they're speaking very aggressive to us. I think Hebrew is quite aggressive, but you put it with these soldiers and these, people, it's even worse. And again, they just gave us some cash, and they gave us a piece of paper and told me to sign it. I had no idea what it was. Long story short, from Allenby Bridge, you get a bus across, about 25 minutes or whatever it was. And then we had the embassy car there waiting for us with a guy with Australian Embassy on his jacket. And that was fantastic. Fantastic. They were very, very good. We can complain about the government's stance and all of those things of how they've been terrible on Palestine and still are. These guys were fantastic. They fed us, took us to a hospital, looked after us, were available to us 24/7 in case we needed them before we left. They then drove us to the airport where we got a plane to Dubai. And so it was Tan slept the whole way. Like, again, she just didn't want to talk. And it was, 10 hours of complete, she's broken, just broken. And the Israelis, that's what they want to do. I've spoken to a number of the other participants or activists, and a lot of them are okay, and some of them aren't. But they're not always going to tell you exactly how they feel as well. And so the courage that, I'm not a first timer to this style of thing, and it still drained me. I'm still not right. I had blood tests the other day because I get overtired too quickly, and my liver and my one of the other things is not working properly. And so during the end of the day, and it's to do with everything that happened over there, not just the prison, but a lot of, to do with everything else, the stress and all of those things. So it does take it out of you, and people need to realise that. But the Australian consulate, they were great. Australia is miles from anywhere. anywhere at all. We're miles from anywhere. It takes us, forever to get home. But we got home. We got to Sydney, where Tan was meeting her family, which was great. I spent the night there, and then came home to Melbourne and sort of crashed and hid for a while.
And how was it like, that homecoming moment for you? I mean, just to hear about Tan. Before we get there, like, it feels like they targeted her in some way. Potentially with yourself. They knew with your profile, potentially your composition, things like that, that you would be someone that would probably use that against them on the other side. Whereas potentially they could see Tan as a more viable target, and due to her background and things like that too, it's just a devastating thing to even think about what she's suffering through right now.
It's true, and it's interesting you say that, because there was a few times, when they started to get a bit, mouthy on me, I would say, this is everything I want. You're giving it to me on a platter. I just need new stuff on you guys, and you're just too easy. Why don't you give me a slap? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? So you're probably right. They didn't want to go too hard there. I mean, who knows? But yeah, definitely being an Arab doesn't help. Definitely doesn't help. The rest of the crew were pretty white. For France and Italy, and we're all, it's just. I mean, we're activists. We're activists. Try and take food. Try and take food into a country. We're not trying to go into Israel. We're not trying to do anything. We just want to feed some kids. We want to give them some teddy bears, give them a little bit of hope, give them a little bit of love, give them a little bit of happiness where they can forget what's going on. I mean, they're, orphaned, they're brothers, sisters, limbs. We can't possibly know what's going on over there. I mean, it was 6 months or even 12 months ago, kids were dying from wounds to their feet because they were walking to get water. But their feet were getting infected. So they were dying. And it's, and when I was overseas on this trip, I got a grandson who's maybe 14 months. The day I left, he ended up in hospital for a week. Had chest infections badly. In Gaza, he would have died. And he got out, he was doing okay. And then as we were getting towards getting intercepted, he was back in emergency again. And it was a real, just shows you the difference. The only difference is where we're born. That's the only difference. And, these kids over there are going to die from something that my grandson had twice in a few weeks. But, it's just, there's nothing left in Gaza. There's nothing left, and they're still bombing. There is nothing left. What the hell are they doing? What sort of people can do that, and what sort of people can back that? That is mind-boggling to me. That is absolutely mind-boggling to me. There's no justification. There is no way in the world that you can say what Israel is doing is okay. It's not.
And what Washington and their allies are allowing and promoting is unconscionable. It's getting to the point now where you can even forgive not forgive, but you can excuse the configuration of Israel at the moment, because they're full of a bunch of intergenerationally raised maniacs that are that are completely off kilter and have no understanding of reality. Now we're looking at these Keir Starmers and these Bidens and Trumps and Albanese's. These are the people that have kept this in situ the whole time, and it's starting to reflect what the West is and what we stand for. And it's so hard here in Australia because, many of us here are humanitarian by default. The human race is humanitarian by default. And to be pushed for so long against the grain by these people, to watch this too. I mean, it's not like it's tucked away behind some iron curtain or some fog of war or something like that. This is just in our face every single day. And
That's
I
what
mean,
it is.
yeah. And I mean, even just sitting here in Australia, I've spoken to many people who have psychological issues from just seeing this death, this
Yeah.
instant train of digital death come through every day. Then there's the activists that are sitting there feeling helpless, like yourself, that are trying to literally storm the beaches of Gaza to make a difference.
Mm.
And this is all underneath these governments that are sitting top heavy and protecting the state of Israel at all costs.
Trump came out a few days ago saying that the Palestinians need to change the way they teach their kids about Israel.
And this
Crazy.
guy here too, like we have a bloke that's so out of he has no ability to understand this conflict, the people within it, or anything outside of his own narcissistic golden bubble. And the callousness of Washington right now is, it was bad under Biden, it was horrible, but yeah, the callousness now under Trump, is shocking.
Yeah,
The
it is.
lack of giving a fuck. We've spoken about this a bit, but you have visited occupied Palestine on multiple occasions now, and you've seen the situation change for over a decade, with your own eyes, and especially with the settlement development. And I was wondering, what sort of changes did you note? I remember you saying over the phone that as you were going across to Jordan, you did notice a settlement area that was just, a monstrosity compared to what you'd seen before. So, can you explain a little bit more about, yeah, how Palestine looks compared to previous visits?
Well, from that trip, I don't know, maybe it was an hour's drive from Ashdod to the Allenby Bridge, maybe an hour and 10. Well, I reckon the last 30 minutes of that trip, there were settlements. These are big settlements. They're using the cranes, they're using the whole lot. I'd never seen anything like that at all when I was there. You see them, like they weren't. I mean, these are all basically joining up as well. It's like a city. I couldn't believe it. It was bizarre because then what you do see is you see scattered in there the Palestinian little villages and stuff that are slowly getting pushed. But they have ramped up those settlements. And Israel allowing this to happen is why things like October 7 happen, because they're going against international law. They're not supposed to be doing what they're doing. I don't know how many settlements there are now on settlers. There must be over 1 million settlers in these areas. It must be, it has to be, or very close to. But it looked like you go back every year, you're going to notice another massive chunk. And they're just taking over. And it's so you'll see a van in a particular spot. It'll have a carport or a cover over it, and that is the beginning of someone's home. An Israeli. He'll go there. It's against the law, but it's against the law to go there. But what will happen is that the government will allow him to set up power. So he has power. And then what happens is he'll put his caravan next to it. And then that starts to build. In a certain amount of time, that becomes a settlement and he's allowed to build his house. And I saw a lot of those as well. And I couldn't see a lot. There was only little holes between the sides. And it's incredible. It's
Our
incredible.
our grey nomads are trying to like get up to Litchfield in the Northern Territory or something like that, and in Israel they're taking their caravans out and and stirring the pot and kicking up a load of dust in the settlements like that, eh?
Well, there was a whole lot today on it. I saw on the airplanes, a whole lot of people going into to Israel, Tel Aviv. Now I don't know where they're going to live, where they're going to become these settlers that are setting up small places, but they're proud as punch to do it. I mean, you think they would at least try and hide it, but they know they just don't care. They don't care, but it's scary. It's actually really really scary. They would take the whole lot if they could, and they probably will.
Now, one thing we've got to talk about here, these incredibly resilient and you know, brilliant people, these Palestinian people that you've encountered over the years. And, we see them in Australia leading protests. We see them, ringing the bell about a lot of these issues at the UN, at NGOs. I would just like to, just for the audience, for you just to give us a little bit of a summary on what are the key kind of, what's the special source of the Palestinian people, if you don't mind me asking.
I think going through what they're going through is something obviously you can't teach, you can't learn, you just go through it. But when you go there, they want you to be okay. They're always worried about me. My first day in 2014, I was surrounded. Some soldiers had their guns pointed straight at me. Some Palestinians around me, and the Palestinians were not going anywhere. The Israeli was yelling at them in Hebrew. And then all of a sudden, they left. They ran. And we got back and we had coffee. And I said, what happened? Well, how come you ran? And they said that if we didn't go, they were going to shoot you, shooting me. So when the soldiers were threatening to shoot the Palestinians, they weren't going anywhere. They were staying there to protect me. So they only left when the soldiers said, we'll shoot him. And that was my first actual video I ever did in Palestine in 2014. And I remember sitting around there and, they're having coffee and smoking and, like, they never know me, these people. But how does that work? And then I'd go to different areas, they'd introduce me to different people, and, they're just genuine. They're very funny. They've got a great sense of humor, which I think helps, to get you through. Through the occupied West Bank, religion isn't as big as what a lot of people maybe think it is. It's not as big, but there are religious people, and I think that religion can be great for them. It gives them something to hold on to, I think is really, really good. But the fact that the Palestinians will never give up. They are some of the smartest people. Per capita, they have some of the best results across the board. Considering everything they go through, it's incredible. It's incredible. But they're not haters either. They don't hate. They don't hate. I didn't see a lot of hate. I saw a lot of anger. I did see some hate, but not a lot. There's more disappointment or anger or, wanting. They know that it's unfair what's going on with them. They'll be lifetime friends. They truly care about you. There's none of this superficial level either. And it's amazing to see after the amazing thing that, they've gone through. If you start listening to their stories, it's heartbreaking because their stories are all very similar. Whether they've had kids killed, wounded, imprisoned, beaten, house raided, like on a regular basis, beaten by settlers, beaten by the police in going through the old city, putting any Arabs going through the old city tend to be fully searched these days. 20 Israeli kids walk past, one Palestinian kid, and he has to be put on. They often put them on a pedestal now so everyone can see them, degrade them. But the best people ever, staunchest people you'll ever meet.
The character building that must be, almost essential to survive in a place like that. It doesn't cease to amaze. And look, yeah, your videos, and I want to go back to some of these viral clips of Robert Martin, which is how I essentially came across you, Robert. um, there is something unique to them. Something that potentially made you a target, as you just let us know, and also in prison, someone that made them wary. You have a big impact, and as an Australian ambassador of outrage towards this kind of this horror, this rolling horror going on in Gaza. You capture this quintessential, like, Australian. It's like a rational and pragmatic outrage that's kind of like fair go. It's a fair go kind of outrage, and you approach these IDF soldiers on the street with that kind of what's wrong with you guys, mate? You know, fair suck at the sauce bottle. There's a bit of that that
Exactly.
goes on. It's just sort of like, and it's quite basic. And it just captures the binary between humanity and this kind of mixed up mob in Israel. That yeah, the whole world is witnessing every day. And I know I've got to let you go, but I wanted to ask, what do you think drives this enmity of Israel towards the Palestinians? You speak about these literacy rates, the happiness, these happy-go-lucky, amazing people. Is there an element of jealousy here as well? I mean, we've seen Israelis commandeer foods, music styles, you know, bloody everything they can from Arabic culture and Palestinian culture. So yeah, I was wondering what drives this enmity towards the Palestinians.
I did an interview with Nurit Peled. Some people might know Miko Peled. He is he's a famous guy, one of my best friends. He was the one that woke me up to Palestine. So Miko Peled, he wrote a book, The General's Son. His dad was the general. They did he's quite famous. His sister is Nurit, and I did a big interview after reading her book because she did a book that actually was she studied the Israeli education system when it came to Palestinians. She's a professor. She's Israeli. She's Jewish. So, and her daughter was killed by a Palestinian bomber. And so, rather than go right, we need to go and kill everybody, Netanyahu and all of them went to the house when this happened years ago. And Miko and the sister, they decided they wanted to figure out what happened. So she studied the whole education system, and she told me when the kids are 3 years old, they'll go to 3-year-old kinder, and soldiers will come in. This is the beginning of it. This is the beginning of the brainwashing. And the soldiers will be there saying that we are here to protect you from the Palestinians, from the terrorists, from them. They're trying to steal our country. You know it's our country. So it starts here. Mm. And then as slowly as you start going up into, to your age groups, the school starts teaching you. In the older days, they used to teach that the Palestinians were simple folk. That was one of the other things, savages. Like, in Australia, we call them the savages, and this is the way you have to demonize the people who you're trying to steal the land and colonize. But it continues on. And every time that, in a lot of their books, if you use the word Palestine, you've got to use the word terrorist first. And so by the time you grow up, done. You don't like them. You either don't like them, maybe you're envious of them, absolutely. Maybe they're definitely a threat to you. You've definitely got to do something because they're a threat. We can't possibly have these things. And when I saw the soldiers out the front of a refugee camp, they didn't look like they were comfortable there. I think they were shuffling with the idea of, should we really actually be here? They are only kids. That's what I saw on some of them. And so I think the world has seen a different Israel since October 7. It's the Israel I've always seen. I've always seen that Israel, just in different numbers today. I think also Israelis within Israel might also hopefully be waking up to the truth. Going, seriously? Because you hear these guys like Seth Rogen, famous actor, for years. He woke up, he said, look, I was lied to. Everything I heard was a lie. The Israelis aren't like this, and the Palestinians definitely aren't like that. And so hopefully that's what's happening. People are slowly waking up. And today we haven't had such a vast scope of activists, from kids to students to we've got the full generation here, which is fantastic. And Israel, we can't hide it. It's all out to sea. They can't hide it. And so I believe I think a lot of it's fear and also jealousy.
Jealousy and fear are two very powerful drugs. And in the case here, there must be a lot of fear in Israel about the viability of its society going forward. And after it's kind of taken this line of action, there's no going back. And Israel faces a pariah status for decades, but potentially centuries to come. And as it grapples with that, potentially there might be a young generation in Israel that don't want to carry over that hatred of their parents. And we've seen it happen in other apartheid, ethno-nationalist, colonial setups in the past. And this is no different. Potentially, this could be the start of something different within Israel, and potentially something different for the Palestinians, more importantly, as well.
Mm.
Robert, thank you so much for coming. Just before I let you go, can you let us know what you're doing with your advocacy work in the coming weeks, months, and years ahead?
I'm going to Adelaide this weekend, which will be fun. I like Adelaide. I'll do a talk on Saturday. It's basically just talking about the flotilla. I think it's an important thing, the flotilla, to show people why Israel doesn't want it going anywhere. I'll speak at the rally, and then I'll just cruise around. I'm not a designated speaker. I'm not an author. I'm just a dude trying to do what I can. And I do have a unique experience when it comes to, I suppose, Palestine and Israel. And so we'll keep busy.
And I think more importantly, you're also a very good conduit to the mainstream of Australia, I think. And it's a very important role that you're playing there. So don't diminish it at all. And a lot of us have seen how much of your heart and soul you've put into this, and it takes a lot. And the duress and the grey hairs and all that sort of stuff. Not saying anything. Must be something you have to deal with every day. So thank you so much for coming, Robert. And I really appreciate having your insight for everyone to listen to.
We'll do it again.
Love to. Well, we will get you back on. I think it would be great to speak about the nature of Israeli society and how it contrasts with reality. I think that would be great, just based on your experience. We could, maybe speak about it.
Good.
Yeah. Cheers, mate.
Cheers, bud.
Take care.
Cheers, bud.